Hi, everyone, and welcome to the I Am Landscape Growth Podcast, where entrepreneurs help entrepreneurs grow faster, better, and stronger in the green industry. From leadership to sales to recruiting and operational excellence, we cover the topics holding entrepreneurs back and share how to get past those bottlenecks with the best in the industry. I'm your host, Rob Murray, co founder and CEO of Intrigue, a digital marketing company focused on helping landscape companies grow. So sit back and enjoy the show.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the I Am Landscape Growth Podcast. I have an awesome guest with a unique story we're about to hear. Pumped for you sharing it, Adam Neilson from Pika Landscapes. Thanks for doing this, man.
You're welcome. Good to be here, Rob.
All right, the format's pretty clear. We're talking about the primary growth constraint holding entrepreneurs back in the green industry. You're in a really cool marketplace and have a unique story. So give the audience a quick little Coles Notes of who they're listening to, how you got into the space, and what you're up to now.
Okay, so I will aim to condense the story, but touch on the highlights because it's a long one. I got a degree in landscape architecture because I wanted to design golf courses. And that was my dream as a young man. And so I did that. I actually came to Guelph, Rob, and that's why I was there for 5 years doing a landscape architecture degree and worked for a golf course architect in the summers when I was in university. And by the time I was done, I'm like, I don't want to do that. The world doesn't need more golf courses.
No.
I don't want to invest the next few decades of my life, greening over areas for rich white guys. I don't so much think that way anymore because I love to play golf, but in my young sort of ideals, I kind of I scratched it off the list. And then I also concluded that the other parts of landscape architecture that I had learned in school weren't phenomenally interesting to me. And I didn't want to be a landscape architect by the time I finished school. So long story short, I spent the next 20 plus years in tech and marketing and sort of the digital space. I had a graphic design business that I started with a partner, had an e-commerce business I started with a partner. I was an executive with a tech startup and with a national ad agency. And I was an executive desk design computer tech guy. I learned how to code, I learned how to design, I learned how to manage software engineers and product engineers. And some of those were my.
So what the heck happened?
Yeah, I know. I'll bring it.
No, I know it's okay. I'm just listening. It's like, oh my
Bring it
God,
all
this
full
is gonna be
circle.
awesome. Yeah, I know you will.
So and I also had a young family, and so there was all sorts of like dynamics going on there that sort of had a very big impact on my risk tolerance over those decades. In my 20s, I was like, bring it on. In my 30s, I was like, I just want a job that pays enough. And then kind of got into my 40s, and I'm like, I am really clear at this point that I don't like working for other people, and I like being in charge. And I'm kind of tired of producing digital artifacts that don't feel real anymore. So, I was making email campaigns and websites and mobile applications and all these things that were at times extremely creative and fulfilling, but they're very temporary. And so there was then a family decision. My wife and I decided that through a series of things that we wanted to move out of Vancouver and go live in a ski resort. And so we made a lifestyle move to Whistler. And at the time, I was still able to run my product department with a tech startup in the city, mostly remotely. But once I kind of got into that, I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to put down roots in this new town that I think I'm really going to like, but have all of my work not touch this place. So that experience, as well as the clarity that I want my own business again after having some in my 20s and early 30s, led me to I'd like to look for a business to buy in Whistler. I haven't bought a business before, but I think I could figure it out with my network of smart people around and reading books and being resourceful. And so I did. So long story short, I looked at a few businesses, kicked some tires, certainly was not looking for a landscape business, mostly because of my very clear vision that I didn't want to be a landscape architect 25 years previous.
Right.
But then one kind of came across my desk. I'm like, I don't want that. But I talked to the guy and I'm like, okay. Takes the winter off and can kind of ski when he wants. Doesn't seem like he's terribly at this point in his career, invested in really pushing the needle on his business, meaning he's running a good business, but he's not really driving it.
Yeah.
And he makes a decent living, a living that would be sufficient for me to support my family. And I thought that sounds pretty good. So I looked into it, and I ended up buying his business in March, with a meter and a half of snow on his trucks and lawnmowers, and really like due diligence is tricky on a business in winter when everything's outside.
Right.
So I did that. I remember meeting with him in March before the snow had melted and we started the first season, before I'd sent any invoice or produced any work. Coming home that night after just talking through with him a lot of things and calling a few prospects about some business opportunities in the transition. I came home that night and I just said to my wife, I said, Sarah, we're fucked. I can't learn enough fast enough to make this work. I'm really sorry. Made a big mistake. We need to sell the house and pay the bank back, all this stuff, just like absolute fear.
Whoa.
And she just, her jaw just dropped. And I'm like, yeah, like, but we still got each other and kids are fine and I'm not losing any friends. And like, so, it's not that bad. But then I slept on it, got up the next morning. I'm like, well, I've got a choice. Either like I give it a try or I throw in the towel before I've even. So gave it a try. Worked harder than I ever have in my life because, everything took me 10 times longer than it should because I
Right. You
didn't know what,
didn't know.
I didn't know what a yard of topsoil cost. So, like doing an estimate, one that I can do in 15 minutes now would take me 10 hours.
Right.
So just hard work and desperation. I was desperate. And I really didn't have a choice but other than to make it work. And then I think by August that year, I'm like, I actually really like this. I think I can be good at it. And this year's going to work. And then fast forward, that business was called The Gardener's Yard. I ended up rebranding that business over that first winter because I didn't like the name. And then spring number two, another landscape business in town called and said, we're thinking of selling. Are you interested? And I'm like, oh no, I've taken on too much already. Look at it. And I bought it too, effective June 1st of season two. And then I ran two separate landscape businesses in year two, different
I
people,
wish I wish this was like a Netflix show that we could
all
watch
that stuff.
seasons.
And that second year was really hard. The cultures of the two businesses did not gel. And that business was called Out on a Limb. After year two, I amalgamated the companies under the one
Right.
umbrella landscapes. And then, that was 5 years ago. So that's how I got here. I bought two landscape businesses, having never done it before. And
Awesome.
and now
So
I know what I'm doing for the most part.
for the most part.
Yeah.
So what's the core focus of the business today? Like, what are you kind of like
Yeah, so
aimed at?
we have a decent maintenance, a substantial maintenance portfolio that is mostly high-end residential. We do
Nice.
some commercial, but for us that's like hotels and high-end condominium townhouses. And then we have a trucking division, so we have a tandem dump truck and we also have a roll-off bin truck. So we're doing material deliveries. They also support our crews, and then we're also doing a lot of dumpster disposal and material, like delivering gravel and soil around the valley. And then we have a design build install division, which is where I spend most of my time.
Cool, making the cool stuff.
Yeah, making the cool stuff. That's where the design part of me has come back, and it turns out I really like making beautiful things that are real, in addition to
And last,
digital
not, I
things.
mean, for a
Yeah,
long time.
totally. So, where I find I really get jazzed is on the softscape side. So while we do a lot of stone masonry, high-end kind of hardscape projects, I get jazzed when it's like 2,000 plants come in a truck and I'm doing the layout and just creating with it and visualizing all the stages. And like I love those days. And I get in the field and I work on those days because it's fun.
Because that's your magic spot. You're like, you're
Yeah.
pumped. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. All right,
Yeah.
sweet. So this is an interesting question then, because if you look at the stages of growth, you went from zero to running, and
Yeah.
then you went from running to disrupting and culture fits. And I think this is then like a really cool perspective that you get to bring to this conversation around what do you see as the primary growth constraint holding entrepreneurs back in the green industry?
Yeah. Well, I can only speak for myself. So I can talk to what I think holds Adam and Pika Landscapes back.
Yeah, like maybe some of the
Uh,
ceilings you hit and how you broke through them.
yeah, okay, so that's helpful. So I would say that while it's not true today, every year before this year, housing has been a constraint because, well, there's lots of people interested in working for us. There's been really nowhere that they could live in our area, in the sea to sky area, like actually nothing.
Right.
So I've just been limited by my ability to add people to produce the work I think I can sell. That is shifting. And I would say this year that is not a real constraint. So I'll discard that one based on that. I certainly hit a ceiling around 1.5 million in revenue where it was me and then field staff. And I had no management or office staff to just help. And I think about a million and a
Jeez.
half was the point where it's like, okay, this, I can't go to every meeting. I can't meet with every client. I can't write every quote. I can't send every invoice, but I had been. And so at that point, my first significant hire was a construction manager, and their job was then to, set up the crews, remove obstacles for the crews, brief the crews. And really that was a natural thing for me because I don't come from the landscape construction world. So while I've learned a
Right.
lot and I'm capable, I'm not an on the tools landscaper that's been doing this for a long time that can go in and show the guys how to do highly technical things. Most
Right. Yeah, yeah, it's like business, design, sales. It's kind of like your thing.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and like I have a lot of operational experience with small businesses, and so I'm fairly comfortable in that space in the sense that I feel like I can do a lot of those things or have done a lot of those things that can sort of win relative to competitors who are sort of trying to figure that stuff out after being very
Yeah, they're like the opposite in a lot of
a
cases.
lot of ways. Yeah. So that was a key hire. And then, we learned pretty quickly that about somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 jobs at a time is about the max for what that person can handle, depending on the complexity of the jobs. Once we got up to 5 maintenance crews, I hired a full-time maintenance account manager, and she's been with me for years now. And her job is mostly to manage our clients' happiness with regards to the service we're delivering. But she's very much like hands-on with the crews as well. And at times in her role has been training and getting crews out of the yard in the morning and all that stuff. So once those two people were in place, we were able to get to about 4 million. And then I think my next ceiling was, okay, there's still too much on me. And our construction side is feeling very strained because that one guy who's managing 3 or 4 crews always is stretched thin, and my foremen in the field are frustrated because they're not getting answers quick enough or they're not getting
Sure.
enough time to work through problems. So this year we hired a logistics manager to handle all of our yard and trucking stuff, and we
So
hired
that it was off of this guy and you could focus just on the foreman.
because it's like almost dispatch, a lot of phone calls, a lot of
Oh,
interruption.
dude, there's so many things moving everywhere, literally.
Yeah, and that business has been growing. So it's just and that's the one part of our business which is like we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like there's no planning in that business. Like someone calls, yeah, really, it's like someone's got a bin, it's full. I want it picked up this afternoon. So you have to be reactive and just be available. And then we hired a project manager on the construction side to sort of work in between myself and my construction manager. So now I have a leadership team that is managing parts of the operations of the business. And while I'm not fully abstracted from that, and I hang on to those things part of tightly, and that's one of the things that holds me back, Rob. Um, I'm I don't know what's going on every job all the time, and that's significant progress for Adam.
That's a big deal. But it's, so there's a lot that you just unpacked there. Um, so I want to just make sure I get this last one here. So not okay. When you talked about the second company that you weren't going to buy that you bought,
Yes.
and the two teams just didn't, from a cultural perspective, come together well.
Yeah.
Like, what did that look like in terms of their behaviors, and then like result that you experienced, and then B, how did you go about, improving it?
Well, it's interesting, what I concluded happened there because it was hard in the moment to know what was going on. But we had separate yards, even though they were about a 7 iron apart. So, and those weren't merged. So we had separate facilities. Um, and the previous owner of the second business I bought, and it was all maintenance. So they had 3 maintenance crews, um, almost all females, both the previous ownership as well as all the leadership over there. And the previous owner was a master gardener, and
Oh
she
wow.
and she was phenomenally knowledgeable. and was very much in the trenches with her crews every day, teaching, showing, directing. I come along, she's gone. I'm
You're
a
like, I don't know about this.
I'm a business guy, and I'm like, hey, I hired you because you guys know a lot more than I do about these things, and you do a phenomenal job, and your reputation's really good. So if there's things you need from me that I can help with, awesome. But I don't have time to be out pulling weeds with you. And my sense is they really didn't like that.
Right.
That's not the kind of leadership they were used to. And it was not the kind of leadership that I think they craved or they thought they wanted.
Right.
And so when I started talking more about, billable hours and stuff versus identifying weeds, and like I know a lot about plants, but I wasn't out there. I think it was just it was a miss for them. So really what happened is that year finished, and some of those people I didn't invite back because I run a business for 8 months.
Right.
Everyone's laid off in the fall. I didn't invite back, and some of them that I didn't want back didn't want to come back. And so there was
Mhm.
100% turnover on that business. I lost everyone, and I built around the people that I had, some of the key people that I had at Pika that first year.
Yeah,
Um,
and then you maintain the customers. So then
for
you
the
had
most,
to
yeah, like we lost a few, but it wasn't abnormal. It wasn't, maybe,
shocking or anything.
yeah, maybe it was 10 or 15% of those customers did not stick with us.
And that's amazing, especially on an
Yeah, and
acquisition.
you buy a business, and that's the biggest risk. It's like, well, that's essentially what I'm buying. Because in my case, I really wasn't buying the people, and the trucks weren't worth much.
Right.
And if those customers choose not to renew because there's no way to contractually oblige that, then it's a painful investment.
Yeah, no question. Okay. So, essentially they weeded themselves out. Well, sorry, no, go ahead. I just wanted to finish the but giver.
Well, no, it's just interesting reflecting back on that and how um, I probably could have had more preemptive conversations to, I was trying to win them over. I wanted to be liked.
Mhm.
Uh, but I was working many hours and I just didn't have the time. And nor did they really understand what they wanted from me. But I think what they wanted from me was not something I could give them. And so there was a mismatch there. And then, I start doing strategic planning over the winter and I invite some of them into it. And there was more of a reaction of, this guy's all about business. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's like
Right.
it is. And that's not like I have no hard feelings against that, but
No,
that's
of course
that's
not.
how I'm wired. I'm like every winter, I'm going to use my 4 months to try and be a little bit better next spring.
Yeah,
And
it's awesome.
I find that winter sabbatical, like people say, oh, you must ski all the time. And I think you and I have talked about this. And I'm like, well, I ski when there's really good snow, but I'm picky.
Yeah.
I'm not skiing. There's like, I
Sorry,
just,
pardon me here. Excuse me, you got it
yeah,
out to
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I'm spoiled that way. And I actually, I find skiing less interesting than I once did. So like, I really find the winters energizing to get some coaching and read books and work on little initiatives and recruits. Like there's a laundry list of things that I can do at my own pace that I think will give me just a little, just a little bit better
Yeah,
come March or April of the next year. And I actually quite love the winters for that reason.
that's awesome, man. And so if the audience listening is thinking about buying a company, because this is a pretty like topical conversation right now of people looking at growth through acquisition, based on your experience, what would you do differently next time from like a due diligence point of view or like an interview? Like, would you have changed anything the way you had bought it to try to understand the dynamic differently?
I I don't think I would have handled the buy necessarily any differently.
Right. Like you're kind of set, you're doing that.
Yeah, and buying the second one was so much easier, right? Because I now I knew the market. Now I knew what a yard of topsoil cost. Like I could just evaluate it through a lens of knowledge rather than
Right.
evaluate it through a lens of total ignorance. So, I spent maybe 20 hours on that second deal. The first one I probably spent 500 hours on because it's like I didn't know anything.
Right.
But I think I would have really invested more time and effort into the relationships with the leadership that I assumed with that second business to connect with them better on a human level and to try and align who I am, what I want, and what I think I can do for them better and hopefully give them a safe place to tell me what they want from me. Because I think I skipped over that part and I think I can do that in my career. Like I'm pretty introverted. I'm head down. I'm focused on the next task. I can very much willfully well, not willfully, but I can very much ignore the investment of time and effort into the human side of the business, and that
Sure.
cause pain for me, or it can cause pain for the business. And it's yeah.
I think that's really well said. And I think a lot of people, whether they know it or not, um, fall into that bucket a little bit. Because it's like, I don't have time to build this relationship right now. And it's like, well, and so then if you're listening, the person listening to this and saying, okay, I am looking at buying this thing. And let's say they say it's $1 million business they're looking to buy. So a solopreneur run, they got a couple of staff, maybe it's like, 5, 6 people on a crew or 2 crews, whatever. And they're making to buy. From a planning perspective, is there like a tangible kind of nugget of like, hey, it's going to take longer than you think, and like, you're going to want to spend a day a week at least talking and interviewing with people, or is there just something that like, now that you look back at it, you're like, is there a bit of a thing just to give people some idea of what the expectation would be to start building those relationships in a new place?
I don't really know. Like I think the only way I know how to answer that is probably I should have just been more visible in the field more often that first year. And it wasn't realistic. And I'm not sure what I would have had to cut off my list to do that.
Right.
Maybe there was stuff I was doing that was less important than that, and I just didn't see it or didn't want to
Yeah.
do it or didn't want to do it. Like I'm not naturally inclined to the people side of the business. Like I think I'm pretty good at communicating and managing people, and I've done a lot of it, but I don't love it, and I don't seek it out. I don't put that kind of work at the top of my list.
Yeah, it's not like the 1,000 flowers that are coming or plants that are coming in that you're about to like create this like whole new physical outdoor space that gets you like jazzed up.
Yes.
Well, and so that was leading to this next thing about like, okay, it seems like you've surrounded yourself with a pretty solid leadership team. They've complemented a lot of what you do. You don't have involvement in all the projects, which is like a good sign because like you are actually empowering these people to go do these things. But then you kind of mentioned this idea of like, well, I hang on to a couple of things because it's just like what I love. And you kind of said that's kind of what's holding me back. And then I was just curious because like, what's your take on this idea of hanging on to the thing that you love is kind of like the dream? Whereas in some people, it could be like, well, I want to create a fully autonomous business. So if I hang on, I'm in the way. And I feel like this dichotomy is a part of the conversation that comes up a lot in these interviews of like, there's actually a thing in the business I love to do and I don't want to let go of it. So I was just curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, so I think about that quite a bit because I have certainly been involved in peer groups where many of the business leaders, that is their primary goal, is to be so abstracted from the day to day that they don't really need to be there. And awesome, right? Like, and ultimately the business is worth more if it's highly profitable and you can do that because it's more sellable. I'm not building a business to sell. I love it. And if
And that,
okay, can I keep going or do you want to interrupt?
no, no, for sure. No, 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 no. Please, 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 please. You're
If
resonating.
maybe some of my kids want to get involved at some point and that's a succession plan, but I can see myself doing this for another 25 years. And I'm not that young anymore. So like I'm not looking for a way out. If I can play golf maybe twice a week in the summertime, sometimes I'm happy with that. So I think I I recognize that I need to abstract myself from the day to day so that I provide my key people with opportunities to grow in the business. So it's less about me trying to not be there and be unimportant in the business so it can run without me. It's more about like I don't want to disempower them from being able to grow and therefore for me to be able to retain them and pay them better and all those things that, if I was in their shoes would be important to me. And I've realized that what's important to me is quite different than what's important to a lot of my employees. And that's hard for me at times because like I'm just like
Mhm.
I'm ambitious and I'm hungry and I'm very restless. And if things aren't always changing or we're challenging things, I get bored. And that has been a bit of a trajectory in my career. And like every kind of 5 years, I get an itch and I do something different. I kind of blow it up and do something different. Sometimes that's worked. It's never sunk me. And I'm now 7 years into this and I'm nowhere near that because I'm like, let's try this next year. And I don't think I'm like flippant or careless about those things. Like I'm fairly strategic, but I can very easily make big financial decisions to try something that's new with the expectation that, as long as we're investing in something that's not going to put us out of business, that could work. I'm game to do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so I think I kind of answered your question there.
Yes, you did, and I think actually quite well, because I've had this conversation and in my own mind a lot about this idea of like, and I've seen it happen. So through EO and just peer group and network, watching people that sell a business, so they actually get to the spot, they exit, and then there's this weird period where there's like it's almost like depression. Like it might even be a form of, I don't know, um, because like there's this beauty in the struggle that's our choice of entrepreneurship, and I actually think it's one of the most beautiful things in terms of a pursuit, because you get to build an environment for other humans, you get to put yourself through something that's really difficult, but you're doing it on kind of like your own terms for the most part. And so there was this, I don't know what the heck made me read this thing. I don't know if you've read Freud's Civilization and its Discontents. Anyway, a little bit difficult to get used to. Freud writes from like the 30s, so like it's a little bit different, but kind of get into it. But long story short, it's like the human condition is suffering, or it's the attempt to create a lack of suffering. And most attempts to create a lack of suffering end up in isolation, which in itself is suffering. And so it's like this dichotomy of like, well, what kind of suffering do you really want to have? And if you acknowledge that suffering is a thing, but it can be enjoyable, and hard work and a professional like approach or pursuit was essentially the essence of this thing, that like that's there's beauty that lies in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, very, very well paraphrased. And I think the lowest, most challenging times in my professional career have resulted in the most personal reward and excitement and adventure over a broader time horizon. And so I'm quite comfortable with discomfort, and I'm quite comfortable with things not being easy. And in fact, I get restless when they are. I feel like something's wrong. So I think I actually create a little bit of chaos. And certainly early in my career, I think I actually sabotage things just to create a little bit of adventure. I know I did at least once. Yeah, way back.
I've heard this from so many entrepreneurs. Like there's this idea of the wartime CEO. They're like, if it's peace times, I'm going to go start another business.
Yeah, yeah.
And when this thing goes to hell, I'll come back and help. But like, I don't want to be sitting around when it's boring. Anyway, I just think that's super cool. Okay, so then what kind of are you? Is there a bet that you're making soon? Is there something, or did you already make it from the winner? And now, like, what kind of something new that you're looking at? And then I got a follow up question.
Well, I guess the somewhat modest bet I made this year was to invest in full size dump truck, which isn't a huge swing, but it took a fair bit of money, and we've had to find a driver and kind of work that into our ways. And last year we just could not find a truck at times because everyone was so busy, and it really caused some inefficiencies on our job sites. Like, let's just get our own. It'll always be available for our crews when they need it. And if we're struggling so much to get one, there's others out there are too, and we can probably keep it busy. Now, that hasn't totally turned out to be true because the market's just gotten a little bit softer.
Right.
But and the truck has been a bit of a money pit in many ways so far. So it's not going to put us out of business, and so therefore I'm not super concerned about it. But it might be something that we pull the chute on after a couple of years if that's still the case.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it's a lot of people think that decisions are like one way doors, right? It's
You
like
can.
once they go through the door, they're not allowed to go back.
I'm very comfortable with, like, you know what, guys, we've run this for 2 years. It's not working. Here's the numbers to back it up. Let's sell the truck, cut our losses, and move on. And that's okay. We've learned a bunch.
Yeah, that's big.
I'm,
That's a
I'm
big
very,
deal.
very comfortable if that's where we get to. So
Okay. So
yeah.
coming back to this kind of full circle, you're in technology, you're in marketing, design, you're running computer engineers, software engineers, whatever, tech and landscape. Like, what do you see coming? I was at the NALP Leaders Forum, so National Association of Landscape Professionals Leaders Forum in Costa Rica, and Jim Collins, actually a Guelph guy, not Jim Collins, sorry, what was his name? Oh my God, I have to look this up before I bastardize it. He's a futurist. Hold on, what's his name? Collins. No, it's not Tom Collins. That's a drink. Jim, no, that's the author. Good to great. Anyway, this guy was awesome, and he's talking all about AI and the amount of people that were just like, "What? I'm not even like, it's like, this is ridiculous. This is insane. Like, I can't even keep up with like Google and my email, let alone,
Yeah.
AI. So what do you see? Like, do you see something coming? Are you using it? Like, what's that look like for you?
Well, like yes and yes. I'm I'm extremely confident on experimenting with tools and automation and software in my business because like I've had to learn new applications throughout my career all the time and become very competent, highly competent with very technical software. So I think for me, I'm most interested in just uh, using AI agents to automate more and more and more of the back office part of our business. I think, I hired a virtual assistant last year in the Philippines, and that was in the end it was 30 grand for the year. And I think I can do what she did for $1,000 by this time next year once I just spend some time this winter. Like, I just think that I'm already running a fairly lean operation as
Yeah.
far as what we're able to do with software and a very small office staff. And I think it can get even leaner. Um, I'm also curious about how we can use autonomous mowers with like I haven't gotten my head around how it looks in our world with a lot of small properties that don't have much lawn and it's mostly garden care.
Mhm.
But I think we should be able to do as much revenue, if not more, with fewer people as the years go by between actually robotics, as well as just leaning out the overhead side of our business on the back office side. So that's that's it from me. But I think
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable driving that change. And like what you said, it's like, yeah, I've been in the room with landscape business peers and they're just like, oh, who's the kid in my office I can ask to do this? They're so overwhelmed and intimidated by all of it that like nothing's probably going to happen in their businesses. And I think
It's
and
a
hope
huge
that,
opportunity.
it's a huge opportunity and that I'm well positioned to kind of to win. And I like winning.
Me too. Jim Carroll. It was Jim Carroll was the guy.
Carol,
Food
I don't know
First.
that. I don't
Yeah,
know that.
he's a speaker
Yeah.
guy. I'll send you his LinkedIn profile after the case and leave it in the bio here. Okay, last one. Um, Resource, author, speaker, something that kind of gave you aha, maybe one or two that you think would be worth the audience checking out.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a list. I sort of did two things, Rob, and I wrote kind of the three books that have been the most influential on the business side for me in the last, let's call it 5 years. So one is A Great Game of Business.
So good.
The other is Never Split the Difference, and then the third one is the Crucial Conversation series. So those of most businesses I read, there's business books I read I think are shit, and I don't take much away from them. But all those three they're still on my bookshelf, and I've referenced them multiple times.
Well, not to mention the fact that Never Split the Difference is remarkably entertaining and could be like a Netflix movie in
Oh
itself.
man, yeah, it's so good.
Yeah,
Um,
so
I would say anything by Jordan Peterson. I think he's one of the most lucid, smart, and refreshing voices in the world right now. So I consume
isn't that the truth, eh?
a lot there. Um, and then just kind of back to I'm listening to a fair number of like just AI daily brief podcasts, like what's happening out there. Oh, this Manus tool has been dropped. It can do this and this. And they're not landscape specific at all. It's more just about this whole idea of what AI agents can do as far as tasks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm actively consuming that stuff, as well as some health stuff and Tour de France and all that stuff too that's happening right now. But
Very cool, man. Well, I very much appreciate you doing this. Um, it was a gem of an episode, and you're right, it was a completely unique start of a career in the landscape business and into entrepreneurship. Adam, thank you so much for doing this, man.
you're welcome. See you, Rob.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the I Am Landscape Growth Podcast. If you're listening to this and you're under $1 million in revenue, we have a roadmap just for you. It's all about going from 0 to $1 million as a landscape business. It's called the $1 million Landscape Growth Strategy Roadmap. You can get it for free, absolutely no strings attached at intubemedia.com/roadmap. We work with hundreds of landscapers, we've interviewed thousands, and we've compiled all the foundational skills required, tactics and strategies to go from 0 to $1 million. It's broken down into 5 simple principles that we've compiled from all the people that are the best in the industry, as well as sharing, stories from our own journey getting to $1 million at Intrigue. And so if you're interested and you want to check it out, intriguemedia.com/roadmap, and then you'll get the 0 to 1 million landscape growth strategy that'll help get you over $1 million. At the end of the day, getting to $1 million is kind of on your shoulders as an entrepreneur. We work with some people under $1 million, but for the most part, our clients are over $1 million in revenue. So we're trying to do whatever we can to help people get there. And then once you get there, if you're looking for some more help, we want to get to 5 or 10, then that's kind of where we come in. We can generate you a bunch of awesome leads. But until then, if you're trying to get over that $1 million hump, check out intriguemedia.com/roadmap. You can grab it, download it right now. It's completely free. Hope it helps.